Apparently, there are students in Surrey are campaigning for black-only clubs that only black, or shall we say, students of colour can go to. Is that the fact?
Yeah, so I saw it and I was like, there is absolutely no way this is true. Surely not. So then I thought, I'm actually going to go and look at their Instagram because it's got to be an edit. I swear to God, I thought it has to be an edit. Someone's done it on purpose. It was not. It was true. So Surrey Students Union for Black History Month hosted or wanted to host. I don't know if they're doing it now, if the uni got involved because there was a lot of backlash, but wanted to host black only netball sessions and black only dodgeball sessions. Obviously, that is legitimately racial segregation and should be illegal. And I think it is illegal because Surrey Police contacted me to say that they are investigating it.
And which university is this? Surrey, the University of Surrey.
Yeah, uni of.
That's in Guildford, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's segregation. That's apartheid, isn't it?
Yeah, so obviously it's completely wrong, and it does make me laugh a little bit, Kevin, because I was talking about my uni teaching us about unconscious bias, and so universities will lecture us white people on how unconsciously biased we are, whilst doing a hell of a lot of conscious bias, very conscious bias.
Yes. I mean, that is really, really disconcerting because you were telling us a couple of weeks ago when you first turned up at Durham that you had to spend this sort of induction week where, among other things, they taught you about the evilness of your inherent white bias and your prejudice. The prejudice that you is within you that you don't even know. Have you had any more of that?
Not really. We just sort of getting back into lectures. There's always, the talks on climate change. My lecturer the other day in business was like, we were talking about culture. Obviously, we're doing business, and he was saying that if your life is hell, if you're not a straight white man under the Tories, not really sure what that's got to do with business, but there we go.
He said, "Life is hell if you're not a straight white man under the Tories."
Yeah. So
Has,
his
it,
exact word
has he just
is
arrived in? Has he only just arrived in this country like yesterday? Because the way things are here, it's a very difficult job to be a straight white man, middle class white person. They are the most. I should say, we are the most prejudiced against people in the country.
Yeah, I think for some reason my business lessons in this particular lecture I tend to turn into sort of politics lessons. There's a lot of Brexit bashing going on, a lot of Tory bashing going on.
Is there? Do you get a lot of that in the lectures? Yeah.
Yeah, so in one of my modules it's just constant, and I think I didn't choose politics for a reason. Like, I'm doing business.
That's it. So have you had the temerity to mention? I presume you were a fan of Brexit, a Brexiteer. And
Yeah, so
have you had the temerity to mention this to any of your lecturers?
we don't really get the chance. One of the older guys, so I have a mature student in my class, and he sort of brought up the 80s and was like, we're more, and he was like, yeah, we're more accepting than the 80s, but he kind of deflects it. I don't think he'd give me the opportunity to say it. He wouldn't like it if I did, for sure.
Do you think he probably fears that you might be a Brexiteer and he just doesn't even want to hear that atrocity?
Yeah, it's been quite interesting on campus. So we're going into it. I thought everyone was like, "Oh, unis are really woke," and I thought, yeah, they all say that, and a lot of people paint it as some kind of conservative fantasy, but I didn't realise how bad it'd actually be. Like, honestly, I did not think it would be like this.
I mean, what? I think I asked you this before, but what about your fellow students? I mean, we've kind of got used to it from lecturers and professors who seem to have turned themselves into this kind of weird woke cult divorced from any semblance of reality. But what about the students, particularly the first year students, the ones who have just arrived? Are they really like that, or are they just being sort of sucked into a weird life of university life that the campuses have become these days?
Well, I actually think nowadays they are turning out to be like that because we've got a lot of sort of Instagram activism, as I like to call it, where they do those stupid like infographics on Instagram, and most of them are full of a load of rubbish, and everybody sort of puts them on their stories and then think they're sort of the modern day Jesus because they're, you know, morally better than everybody else. So there's a lot of sort of moral populism that's sort of, if I don't do this, I'll sort of stand out. So a lot of young people are sort of falling down this path. I don't think they understand the politics behind it. I think they're just sort of going along with it because everybody else is, and the lecturers are pushing it. So for them, there's no reason for them to sort of stop and think, because surely in their minds, if the lecturers are saying it's right because they're the experts in their mind. So
You
not
s-
good, but
you are impressively culturally resistant, and you can weather all of this, these spheres of influences is that you're being bombarded with. But what worries me is I think a generation of perfectly normal kids are getting out of school, going to these universities, being bombarded with this woke nonsense by right-on professors and lunatic lecturers, and it changes them as people. It changes them into, just infuriating idiot woke warriors.
yeah, I'm going to be honest. Our generation is screwed a little bit.
Yeah. Well, in what way? That I mean, they're not getting many breaks from the lecturers, are they?
No, and there's nobody to sort of stand up and challenge. And if you do stand up and challenge, you know, you're putting your head above the parapet. So for me, I've been told that like people want to like throw acid in my face or whatever. Um, there's no desire to stand up and challenge from our generation. There's no desire to think. We're honestly, we are so doomed. I can't even be positive about it because we are really in trouble now.
I mean, have you sort of expressed your views? Have you stood up for yourself at Durham, and shocked them that you don't conform to university groupthink?
Yes, and I had one of the associations from Durham saying, "This is war." Not that I'm afraid of them, but
I know
yeah.
you're not. I know you're not. You should be careful, though. What have you said that has so annoyed the group thinkers?
That we shouldn't be teaching about unconscious bias. That was it.
Oh, so they think you should be taught unconscious bias.
Yeah.
Are they aware that it is a completely discredited load of nonsense?
No, they sort of feed into it, and I think, you know, I've got to be honest. Cancel culture and this whole thing is from my generation. It's our fault. My generation were responsible for it completely.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So, cancel culture at Durham is alive and well and thriving.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But it's worked at other unis. We've seen it, for example, at Sussex. Poor Kathleen Stock is having a real rough time there. And we've seen it in Essex just now with the Israelis chanting anti-Semitic things because of Professor Kemp. So it's not only us students that are victims of this sort of left-wing toxic cult that is university, it's teachers as well. No one can escape it. It's like a vacuum.
Yeah. Listen, I wanted to ask you about that. I'm glad you brought up Kathleen Stock. This is the Sussex University professor who basically says women are women, and she campaigns for safe spaces for women, for single sex bathrooms, etc. And for that, she's been pilloried. I mean, I think she feels she's close to being driven out of her job. She's got no protection from her own union. Now, it doesn't matter what you think of what she's been saying. What she's been saying is not against the law. So this is a freedom of speech issue. What is your take on the fate of poor Professor Kathleen Stock?
Well, I sort of have two things. One, not only do I believe that she has a right to say whatever she has to say, I also agree with everything that she does have to say. And it's really disappointing the way that students have done this. It is harassment, it is abuse. I'm very thankful that Sussex have come out in support of Kathleen Stock. But when you mention the unions, Kevin, let's just put this into perspective. These teaching unions and education unions had zero problem talking out when it came to destroying the likes of my education for the last 2 years in sixth form. They had zero problem with destroying the education of my generation. But this, where are they with battling spend? Where were they? Weren't interested. This time weren't interested. As soon as it doesn't suit their political agenda, they've got nothing to say. They're silent. So anybody that says these unions care about their members, they don't, because they've abandoned them, but seemingly also have abandoned us at the same time.
Last question, Sophie, and we must talk regularly. I like this inside track on university life from you. But do you find that your fellow students have trouble dealing with opinions they don't agree with?
Yes, 100%. And I think that's the biggest problem with all of this as well. It's a real lesson of when you step outside of this bubble that is this campus and this academic life that we've been living in, there's going to be loads of different opinions, and people need to understand very simple things. 1, to have an opinion. 2, to use your opinion. And 3, that you're not the only person entitled to an opinion, and that there's going to be other people that will have them. But they just can't cope. It's just immaturity, all sorts of other things.
Yeah, and not helped, Sophie, by the educational system they're in. You know, we've got a whole generation of people who, as I say, cannot stand or cannot tolerate the idea of someone not agreeing with them. So whatever happened to academic debate, to intelligent argument, this is what should be being fostered on our campuses. But I think it's died a horrible death. Would you agree?
Yes, and it starts from the very beginnings of the academic system, not necessarily just universities. So in school, you know, we've got the whole there can't be any winners because there can be no losers. You know, everybody's a winner. We've got this sort of, you know, you can't offend people. There's no disagreement. You're not allowed to disagree because it's offensive. All of this is setting people up for failure in later life because they cannot deal with the fact that you're going to take losses, that people are going to disagree with you. And so we're trying to wrap young people in bubble wrap when the world has no bubble wrap. And we're just setting everybody up for failure.
Yeah, I think it's very worrying. We've got to get back to a nation or a population that's able to tolerate intelligent debate, to civilized arguments. I mean, it doesn't seem to happen now. And it's all being fostered, this terrible situation on our university campuses. So keep your eyes and ears open, Sophie, and we will talk again very soon. Always a pleasure. Sophia Corcoran, our university correspondent on life at Durham and other universities around the country. When we come back, we're going to be talking about Rory Stewart, the former London mayoral candidate and Tory MP and minister. He's put himself up as chairman of the National Trust. Can he save that organisation from its mad wokery? I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and this is Talk Radio.
Online, on DAB and on the Talk Radio app. Talk Radio.